How good does it get, SK?
Why not us, Charlie?
Today, live from the Pinecrest Inn, it's the Smylie Show. So long, everybody.
This is the Smylie Show.
There's ways in which you're supposed to speak about certain things about the golf course, first nine and second nine being that. And I think in the first three things that I said, I kept on saying like front nine, back nine, just all of the wrong things. I'm like, dude, you got to get this together, because I kept on recorrecting myself, which made it even more obvious.
Yes, yeah. Second cut, either there's no rough there. It's the second cut. There's lots to learn there in terms of the correct verbiage.
All right, what about this tee shot here, Ted? It's one that you kind of have to sling a little bit. Not a bad one if you're a righty to hit a little toe ball, get that thing running down the hill. But another tee shot that I think fits a lefty better than it does a righty.
Amen to that. I think it's easier to hit that power cut than it is to hit that controlled hook. But I love this for a lefty. The only thing I will say is one of the things you have to worry about on this tee ball, especially if you're a lefty, is the ball picking up earth on the golf ball, because it can land in a very low area down there, and I've seen some significant earth balls there over the year that have derailed some guys' rounds, especially left-handers. So we are conscious of that, but you're a righty, which is good for us today, Smylie. But, to me, again, the genius of Augusta National, if you want to turn something over there and hit it into that low left area of the fairway and have, 140 or 50 to the front, that's a beautiful thing, and we can potentially make birdie from there. But you hang out that hook and you get on that high right side of the fairway, you've got an incredibly difficult second shot with the ball, a downhill stance. You've got a longer number in there than you would have had otherwise to a green that there's a lot, we cannot talk about the 10th hole at Augusta National and not, we're playing from the fairway here, and there's cardinal rules at Augusta National, and certainly number one of those cardinal rules to me is you can never go over the 10th green here. We saw Lottie Woad there, went a long way to losing the Augusta National Women's Amateur last year when she went over the green here, and it went into some bushes that sit there very close to the action. So it's a very difficult, much like the fifth, a very difficult approach shot, in my opinion. The wind's swirling all over the place, and it's very, very difficult to get the ball around the hole here, Smylie. And so what do you think we're going to do?
Well, the problem is today the pin's on the right side of the green, and I never understood how players were able to take the shot on when guys hit it inside of 10 feet to the hole locations that are on the right side of the screen. I'm always amazed. I'm like, that is just such an incredible golf shot. People do not realize it. And unfortunately for us, we hit it in this right bunker, and the pin is back right today, and we are just enough on the upslope, and we hit one of the filthiest bunker shots I've ever hit to 10 feet, and we save par here. But let's talk about these hole locations on the right side of the green here, Bones. I mean, how difficult are these hole locations, man?
I heard a great story from a caddy who caddies for a superstar player that was playing with Scotty Scheffler there a couple of years ago. One of the years Scotty won, it was the front right hole location. They were back there in the fairway, and the wind was such, it was swirling all over the place. They had 6 irons in their hands, and this other caddy told me he and his player were just trying to get the ball on the green, anywhere on the surface. It was such a tough club pull. And Scotty hit a 6 iron to 4 feet and made 3. And they couldn't be, they just blew their tournament was over. They just blew their minds that someone could hit a shot that good that was playing so difficult. But yeah, those right hole locations are so tough, Smylie, to your point. That right greenside bunker that we hit it in is absolutely brutal. You've got virtually no shot to that front right hole location from the greenside bunker. So much to deal with there. And of course, if you play anywhere near that flag and you come up short, of course, we've got that massive false front there that will take your golf ball some 20, 30 yards back down the hill, and just so much to deal with here.
The only other question I had for you, Bones, is that in my yardage book, I have Rays Creek sitting at the back portion of the screen, the back left portion. Of course, as we're heading right down to Rays Creek on the following hole. But if you would swear when you walk up to the screen that it sits back to front, but it also has a pole to the back of the green, and you just played a shot that was significantly downhill. So you would think that the green plays downhill, but I tell you what, when you're walking up to it, it certainly looks like it's pitched back to front. Do you feel like am I losing my mind here, or help me out?
I believe that the green is back to front, but I also think that when you're putting from the front third to a pin in the back, which is would be technically uphill, it's incredibly fast because you're putting towards Race Creek. Again, in my opinion, I mean, these Augusta National caddies, these local caddies, can't be wrong. They caddy there, every day that the golf course is open. They've seen everything out there, 100 times more than any of us have, and they are factoring in this Race Creek, thing relative to the reading the putts out there on every single putt in my experience out there on that golf course. So, to your point, Smiley, I think it's very tricky and a bit of a mind bender in that it's how can a putt be
Yes.
this fast uphill, but it finds a way to be just that.
It's a wild one. I think it's one of the most challenging lag putts of the day when you putt from the front of that green to the back and trusting that it's a fast uphill putt. Which is a very difficult thing to try to wrap your head around. But we're going to say
Smiley,
a prayer as
we
we.
just going to say one thing. We can't leave the screen without reminiscing about. And you're too young. You're way too young to know this, but in 1984, the pin
I
was
am.
back left. Pin was back left there on a Sunday, and Ben Crenshaw made it from about a third of the way on the green, some 50 or 60
Wow.
feet to that on his way to winning his first Masters. So it can be done, but one of the toughest putts anywhere on the golf course, and Ben found a way to make it that day.
We had Ben Crenshaw on the show actually in Augusta last year, and he talked about how they didn't carry a yardage book. They just used trees as references. It's like it was a 6-iron yesterday. It's a 5-iron today. It was just amazing to hear how much the game and the mind has changed, and compared to now where guys are just, to a centimeter of what they were trying to do. And Ben Crenshaw was like, yeah, I hit 6-iron yesterday. I'm gonna hit 5-iron today. It's just amazing to me how the game used to be played.
I agree with you. I've had a chance to caddy for Ben 6 or 7 times, and was old school in terms of how he went about it. To your point here, in terms of picking out trees and sprinklers and things like that, and you got to love the guy. And you talk about a guy that played by feel. It's just it was a
Oh,
joy to witness.
like our colleague Brad Faxon in that similar vein.
Yes.
All right, so we're gonna say our prayer and head over to the 11th tee, which is, I think, a tee shot that's changed over the years. It used to be a heavily wooded area to the right. Now specific pines line the right side of the hole, to where if anything, it just causes a hindrance of a shot shape if you do push it off the tee to the right. But I always found this to be one of the easiest fairways to hit on the property, Bones. But they give you that large of a fairway because the second shot might be the most difficult second shot you have on the entire golf course.
I was thinking about this morning before we got on today, Smiley, and I think that certainly 18 at the Players, in Sawgrass might be the hardest par four I've ever seen in terms of a hole that you're playing under pressure. But I think that the second shot, certainly number 11 here at Augusta National, is the hardest shot into a par four anywhere I've ever seen it in my life, on a golf course. As you said, they basically give you the tee shot. The hole's gotten longer. If the golf course is playing, if there's a little moisture in the ground, you could have a very long second, well over
Hmm.
200 yards, especially if the pin's towards the back part of the green. And look at that diagram right there. You've got water left. You can't get the ball up and down from right of the green. It's virtually impossible, even though, of course, Larry Mize famously in 1987 holed that shot to beat Greg Norman in a playoff. You have to step up and hit a shot here, or you are going to make 5 or 6. in my opinion. And it's just the most intimidating second shot I think I've ever seen anywhere in golf. Straight downhill, something like 11, 12 yards downhill from the very top of the peak there. Those sprinklers there don't do it any justice there. There we go. We're going to go back there to that 201 front edge. That's where we're driving the ball, and it's just it's so incredibly difficult.
It's how this hole is marked with the penalty area to the left. So often you see water around a green marked as red. This is marked as yellow, and that's a huge difference from a player and caddy's perspective, because if you had a ball that crossed the penalty area hooking in there that you could drop up next to the green, with the yellow penalty area, you're having to take it on line with where it crossed, keeping it within the pin, or using the drop zone, which is situated behind that little pond, front left part of the pond, where you're having to chip across it to where 5 is no easy bargain. So it feels like out of bounds when you hit it in the penalty area left.
Exactly right. And I always get the biggest kick out of the caddies, and I'm guilty of it myself that week, is everyone's comparing just in case notes for that yardage there from that drop area should you hit the ball in the water. Because you talk about, having to have a yardage, when things go wrong for your player.
It's a weird angle too, Bones.
It's a really weird angle. And so all you can basically see out there are sprinklers on the side of the green. So everyone's got numbers to those sprinklers, and it's really tough to get the correct yardage once your man's already hit the ball in the soup.
Oh, that's when you got to be prepared in that situation, because a lot of times an angle, let's say if the pin was all the way on that left side of the green, back left, that angle would play a little bit shorter than if it was over there on the far right side. And when you have a player that's trying to make 5 and he hits a good shot, he thinks he hits his number, that better be hitting within a couple yards of that number. If not, that might be the second look that Bones gets during the day. We already had a look maybe at the 5th. We might have just got one if we hit in the water at the 11th. But good news, we didn't hit in the water. We're not stupid, Bones. We didn't hit it over there. We did find the fairway, hit on the front right part of the green, and we 2-putted, and we got out of there as fast as we possibly could.
We just picked up 3/4 of a shot on the field. I love it.
All right. So actually, you know what? Before we get to 12, how would you describe the pitch shots from right of 11? I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you just of what you've seen over the years, and what percentage of guys have you seen actually get stuff up and down right of 11?
I saw Phil hold the Larry Mize shot one year where he went flopper deluxe from way right of the green, and again another shot that if they had it on TV you'd see it a lot. I don't believe they got it that day, but we were 15 yards right of that green to a pretty typical Sunday hole location there, 2/3 of the way on the green there on the left side. And I've seen him get that ball up and down. And granted, we're talking about one of the great short game wizards in the history of the sport.
Sure.
But to me now, we see those lines on the right edge of the green, but basically showing us that is now that's a low area right of the green. It didn't used to be that way, so that makes the chip that much harder. It makes some guys want to bump it into that hill in terms of killing the momentum when they play their third from right of the green. But it's awful over there, and it's incredibly speedy going towards the water, and you can chip it through the green into the penalty area. So much can go wrong there, which is why we were just talking in the fairway. You have to hit a shot into this green, otherwise you're going to make 5 or 6 most likely.
And another brilliant part of the design of the 11th hole, if you do miss a fairway to the right, there's mounds that sit about 80 to 60 yards short right of the green that are going to propel golf balls down to the penalty area. So if you're playing a punch cut, or if you're playing just a regular punch shot, that's another cool feature, Bones, is if you try to take on a magical shot from the right wooded area, you could very easily catch the wrong side of a mound, which, man, how great of a feature is that on a hole?
100% right. Yeah, it's so cool, those chocolate drops, as you say, that are short right of the green. And again, to your point, you just said it exactly right. You can hit that little punch out from the right trees there and think you've absolutely nailed it while the ball's in the air. And if it catches the wrong side, it's going in the water, and then you're back to that drop area we talked about. It can just go so wrong so quickly there.
Oh, yeah, we might need a chocolate drop as we just try to catch our breath here heading to this 12th tee, just trying to get a gauge of what the wind is doing. Would you say that this tee shot and figuring out the wind, is it the most difficult shot to figure out what the wind is doing of any hole that you've ever been on?
Without question. It's brutal. It's not even close. To me it's like it's the meeting of place of two winds on the golf course. And people can tell me until they're blue in the face that the wind's supposed to be west northwest today, and it should be ultimately be XYZ here on the 12th tee. But to me, you throw it all out the window on that hole. There's two different wind directions meeting here on this lowest spot on the golf course, and it's incredibly difficult to pick up what it's doing. I'm a big believer in not looking at all what the flag on 11, which is just to our left, is doing. I don't believe that wind at all. I don't. I only believe what I feel and see right of me over there in 13 fairway. And
wow,
some of the stuff I've seen over the years here, I'll never forget one year playing in a lot of wind, a lot of hurting wind that we could pick up that day with Henrik Stenson. Henrik Stenson hit a 6-iron that went over the green, over the back bunkers, up on the hill towards Augusta Country Club, and he lost his golf ball. And so, of course, now he's got to go back to the tee, and he hit the exact same club that he just lost his golf ball with, a 6-iron, 12 feet from the hole, and I think he made the putt for 4. So we're talking about two 6-irons that went 30, 40 yards difference in total, based on the craziness of the wind that he felt on that particular day.
You know what we're not seeing right here too, as we look at this green, Bones? That's not a 6-iron green. That's a lob wedge green.
You're exactly right. Yeah,
look at that
right.
kidney bean. My goodness.
Yeah, you're right on. We've seen guys obviously, hit the ball in the water and have to hit a wedge in there, and they can't get the wedge on the green. It's just it's amazing, and I have to tell this story because it's my favorite Augusta National story. But the coolest thing to me about the 12th at Augusta National when you're playing there in the tournament is because you're so far removed from the patrons who are if you're on the green or they're 170 yards away. If your player makes a putt on that hole, you can hear the ball rattling in the cup before the sound, before the applause of the patrons, before the clapping from the patrons, that sound ultimately gets to you from behind the tee box. So I remember when Phil birdied 5 of the last 7 to win the 2004 Masters. And he'd hit it to 12 feet to the Sunday hole location there, just a little left of it. And he walked over to me, right after he made the putt. And he said, I've missed that putt left and I've missed that putt right. And I knew exactly what it was going to do. And I just remember as the ball went in the hole, I could hear the ball rattling in the cup before the huge roar from the patrons reached us on the green.
Wow. I mean, it's so unique. You take that walk over the bridge and you walk back to 13T, you feel so disconnected from the world. You're just you're approaching and walking straight into the crowd, walking off 11T, where it just gets the adrenaline, the juices going. And now you're at the green and walking to 13T, where all of a sudden it's like this come down of like, whew, all right, like I can catch my breath finally. It's nice to be walking with a putter to that 12th green.
Oh, and I believe that's the Hogan Bridge, isn't it? And it's just you talk about history and all of the amazing things that have gone on that hole over the years, and the amazing golf course that Augusta National is. It's just whether you're caddying or playing Smylie, I just think there's you're so lucky to be inside the ropes there at any time on, certainly the week of the tournament, or to be playing there the other weeks of the year that the golf course is open. And it's to me one of the real treats anywhere in the world of golf is the ability to walk over that bridge.
Well, we're about to head to a really fun part of the golf course here at 13, and this hole has changed over the years. They've obviously lengthened it to make it to where guys can hit driver off this tee. But I know you got some experience on this 13th hole, and if we did, by the way, we made par at the 12th hole as we head to 13.
Oh, good.
I want people just to, if you're keeping score at home, we're 3 under par. If we were to hit it through the fairway into the pine straw, would you say that we should lay this up, or do you think we should give it a go?
Well, it's a great question. I mean, are we leading? Where are we in the event?
It's the exact whatever the situation was back when
in 2010.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so one of the things about Phil is that Phil was a big leaderboard watcher, and he always wanted, of course, to have his nose out in front. He wanted to be leading. And of course, you want to, so he was a guy that, to me, if you blindfolded him at any point during, the Masters, he could basically recite the leaderboard to you, because he was just that interested in what was going on around him. And of course, he was obsessed with winning the tournament as many times as he could. And on that particular Sunday, we had been trailing the entire week, couldn't get out in front. And KJ Choi was leading the tournament in the group in front of us. So when Phil drove the ball up there into the trees, we got up there, and basically the 2 trees he was dealing with, from my vantage point, were probably about, in terms of the kind of slot that he had to play through them, was about as wide as a box of a dozen balls. It was a lot narrower than it looked on TV when I ultimately saw it later. And so we got up there, and Phil did something he only ever did to me twice in the 25 years I worked for him. I didn't even give him a yardage. He basically told me, before I even, could spit out the numbers, this is what we're going to do. I'm going for this green in 2. So obviously, as a caddy, you have to respect that. And I said something about, well, if you lay the ball up, you're the best wedge player on the tour, you could still certainly make 4, especially considering where this flag is. And he said, no, I already told you I'm going for this green in 2. So I basically, as his caddy, shut up. I get the yardage. It was 204 yards to a middle right hole location. And we're just talking about club selection. So it came down to 5 or 6. And we ultimately decided that it was going to be a hard 6-iron, when it became his turn to play. So KJ Choi's putting out on the green in front of us, and he misses about a 5 or a 6 footer, I think, if memory serves. And there was a kind of a strange murmur from the patrons. And so I turned to the cameraman behind us and I said, what gives? And he said, KJ just made 6. I think you guys are tied for the lead now. So that was my opening in the door to go back at Phil, just to sometimes guys are 80% in, sometimes they're 100% in. And I just went back at him and said, hey, listen, I don't know if this changes how you're thinking, but KJ just made 6 here and you're tied for the lead. And I'll never forget what he said to me. He said, if I'm going to win this tournament today, at some point, I'm going to have to hit a great shot under a lot of pressure. I'm going to do it right now. And that caddy voice in my head said, get out of his way. And so, you grab the bag, you get out of his way, and he hit the 6-iron through the trees to 4 feet. And it was, in my years with him, the greatest shot I ever saw him hit. And it was an amazing thing to witness.
All in all, a really good birdie, right?
Yeah, the 4-footer went 4 feet by, and he made that one coming back. But it was. I always thought, there's so much tradition and history at Augusta National, and if you do certain things at certain places in the golf course, they might build a little tribute to you. Whether, of course, you've got the Hogan Bridges and you've got some monuments out there. And I always thought that if Phil had made that eagle putt, that they might have done something there up in the trees. As a tribute to Phil in his winning his 3rd Masters, but couldn't get the putt to go down.
Yeah, I hate to ruin a good story there. I mean, that's just incredible, incredible insight. I would agree with you too. In that situation, it's always so hard too when you're playing a shot and you can't look out in front of you and see it if a tree is blocking your view. And it always felt like to me when Phil hit that shot that's what he was dealing with, is that he was having to look and really just having to trust his memory of what the shot was in front of him, and having to trust, just where his club face was aiming was going to be the right place. And that's just a lot to trust there.
Yeah, you're right. And we talked a little while ago about Crenshaw being a field player, and certainly Phil was in that same vein. And let's not forget, in terms of that funky visual he had on that second shot there, he also was standing on a lot of pine straw, and I was worried about him slipping. So,
Yeah.
because he was going to have to go at that iron shot pretty hard. So, lots to deal with on that particular shot. But of course, he pulled it off in spectacular fashion.
Well, we did too. We hit this fairway bones and we hit this thing onto the green. Easy two putt birdie. We're on to 14. And that's an interesting hole. It's a hole that is shapes the opposite way of the slope. So it's a dogleg left, but everything is pushing down and to the right towards the bottom of the hill. But if you see guys at 3-woods on this tee, you see drivers, but if you hit the fairway, a lot of people talk about Augusta National being a second shot golf course. I think this is another great example of it here at 14. When you hit the fairway, it's all dependent on where the pin is. Like if you have pins on this left side of the green, it's so difficult to feel like you can get it close because you have to take on the left edge of the green. And then also that big mound that sits in front of this green that ultimately determines whether you're making a birdie or bogey oftentimes here at 14.
Yes, you're right. It's an unbelievable green complex, as you say. You've got the massive false front down there. Should you not take care of it, it- if you've got of course you've got three tough hole locations and one incredibly gettable hole location. Kind of middle left there. Let's see here. It would be right there. That's where we've seen shots hold. Phil once eagle 13 and then came and held it here on 14 to make back-to-back eagles. I think they're in 2010, and darn near eagle 15 to make three eagles in a row. But that's the very gettable hole location. The other three are much tougher to deal with based on that false front that we talked about. It's a very exacting second shot. And one of the sneaky things about this hole to me, Smylie, is if you drive it in the right side of the fairway and you're playing
Yeah.
to a left flag, that shot plays significantly uphill. When I say significantly,
Really?
I should say definitively uphill. But
Mm.
it's something you can kind of fall asleep on and come up short if you don't pick it up in the practice rounds. But that's just something to take in. And one of the greatest shots I ever saw at the Masters was when they had the front right hole location there. I think in 19. Holy smokes. I'm going to go 1992, maybe the year that Fred won, that Ray Floyd hit the ball short of the green there and then hold it to that front right hole location, bumping the ball into the false front, which is virtually impossible to do, and get the ball close to the hole, and he found a way to make it. So, a lot going on this green.
Wow, that is incredible. It's so difficult short of that green. Conversely, if you're on the left side of the fairway to a right pin, would that play a little bit flatter and almost like down, not quite downhill, but just a
Yeah,
difference in the angles, right?
difference in the angles. I think it's fairly flat, but it's a great question.
All right, so let's go with the pin that's in the middle of the green here at 14. You got that little slope. Everything kind of feeds
Yeah,
to it. We hit the fairway. We
yeah,
we
it's our
funneled
Sunday
something down
pin.
to a tap in. Yeah, we
Yeah,
got a tap in birdie. So we're
yeah,
currently now. Oh gosh, I think we just went birdie. I think we're five
yeah.
under. So we might have to find a bogey along the way here. I think we might be too hot. It might be
All
here at
right.
the 15th because this par five, it can lend you a 3, it can lend you a 6 before you know it. And 6 sometimes can feel like a really good score when you get in trouble on this hole, Bones.
Yeah, it's so I love this hole. Again, well, the fairway's not quite as wide open as it used to be. They put the trees in on the right. You get some guys that drive it up the left side that have to tangle with the trees, as we saw Roy do last year on Sunday, I think, on his way to making a spectacular eagle. Um, but let's just say we hit the ball in the fairway. Smylie, you're obviously having a great round, and
Yeah.
and we found ourselves in the right center there amongst the chocolate drops there, and now here we are. You talk about tough club pulls.
Yes.
Certainly the wind here doesn't tend to be too tricky. It tends to be pretty consistent to me in terms of what it does.
Mm.
But my goodness gracious, We know there's water long. We know that it's virtually impossible to get the ball back up and down from behind the screen. We've got to flat out pull a club here and hit a shot if we're going to go for this green in 2.
And all right, so this is the question I have for you here is for the times that y'all have missed this fairway. I've heard tons of differing opinions on what the correct side of the fairway is to lay it up, depending on where the hole location is. What is your opinion of when the hole location is on the left versus the right, and which side of the fairway you should lay it up on?
I'm a believer that you lay it up on the left side of the fairway, no matter where the flag is. It's the right 2/3 of that fairway to me are severely downhill. And we've seen guys, plenty of guys lay the ball up to 85, 90 yards and with that downhill stance, if you will, chunk the ball in the water short. It's my opinion that the left side of the fairway is much flatter than the right and the center, so that we're going to try and get the ball there. And that location is just we're just trying to flatten out our stance as much as we possibly can.
I don't disagree with you by any means, and especially the left side's great to the front right, back right pins. Those are fairly doable wedge shots, but still, it's not an easy one. I think if people ever try to make the case, is that they think they can make the green bigger from the right side of the fairway to the left pins by using more of the green. But like you're talking about, coming off a downslope, that golf ball is coming in a little lower. If you're a little hot on your number, it can easily skip over the green just as fast and probably work further away from the green versus coming from the left side, which is lower, hitting more up into the hill, which should effectively, you would think, slow the ball down more. So I tend to live on your side of it, but I also am fascinated by people that like the right side for the left pin.
Yeah, I looking at this, certainly also too, an argument for laying it up on that right side is, as you say, is you can kind of, hook spin something there, off that ridge that we see in the diagram there towards the hole. So I'm not going to by any means say that I'm right in wanting to go left, but I certainly see the point that you're making.
All right. Well, we actually hit the fairway, and I always circled that right bunker as a check mark, and we hit it in this bunker again. We just hit another great bunker shot to that back right pin, and we're walking away with a birdie, and we're 6 under par, and we just can't stop right now as we head to 16.
Well, it's a good thing you've got green on today, Smylie, because it's going to go really nicely with that jacket.
All right, I love it. We're on now the patrons are applauding us. It's now becoming imminent that we're heading to the 18th with some form of a lead. All right, so 16th here. It's self-explanatory, right, Bones? Everybody knows what this green's all about. But I want to just quickly ask you about that back right portion of the green and the challenges you think that presents to players and caddies trying to figure out where to aim with this shot.
Yeah, the back right hole location is by far the toughest pin on that green. Certainly if you've got to make a 2, you go after it. I think Justin Rose hit a heck of a shot in there last year and made 2 to the back right hole location. Which of course on Sunday it's typically down there by that left green side bunker, but I think it was an anniversary of Nicklaus's winning the tournament in 1975, which is why they had the pin back there last year. It's to me, if you've got to make a 2, you get after it, and you're certainly trying to hit something next to the hole. But I just think that if 3 is a decent score on this hole, you're basically intentionally playing into the center of the green, and the ball is going to release down that slope, and you're going to have that 45-footer up the hill that Jack made famously in 1975 on his way to winning. And of course, it's a putt that you practiced a tremendous amount in the practice rounds. And if you hit it if you go for that back right pin and you hit it in that back right bunker, I think Fred's the only guy I've ever seen get it up and down from that bunker. He may even have holed it one year. But it's an absolutely horrible place to be. So you have to respect the pin that you're talking about, Smylie.
Yes, and as we head over to 17, we had an easy tap in par here. Now we're headed to the 17 tee, which is again similar to the seventh, facing the same direction, but also you feel the narrowness of this tee shot. Although the seventh is a much shorter hole, the 17th feels as important of a tee ball to find the fairway due to all the pines that line this left and right side of this fairway.
Yeah, it's way tighter than it used to be back in the day. It's become,
Oh wow.
we talked about seven and about one. This is, to me, arguably the sneaky toughest, fairway to find on the golf course. It's, of course, the pressure builds as we get towards the end of the round. It's brutally, brutally tough to find this fairway. And then, of course, if you do, certainly if you don't, you're trying to run something up in terms of into the front center bunker. But, if we're going to make three here or four, we feel like we've got to drive the ball in play.
What a green too. This kind of is a little similar to, I would say the middle half of this green all the way to the right is one of the great greens in the world. I think just when you are putting towards the right side of the green, just the beauty of it, first off, of looking down the hill and just seeing Augusta National, but also just the small intricacies of how challenging it is and how quick that putt really can be working its way towards Race Creek.
You're right. I think Ray Floyd, when had the Masters in his grasp at one point at a tournament in the very early '90s, and hit the ball into the left half of the green, putting towards the right, and three putted and ended up losing the tournament, I think, in a playoff to Nick Faldo. But you're exactly right. The right half of this green is absolute genius, and there's so much to contend with, and it's. We could spend a lot of time talking about it, but you better respect it and you better hit a shot. And if the pin's back right, you better not hit the ball over the green, because you cannot get the ball up and down from there.
Good news in the notes. I have no, and no, long at the green to the back right pin. And on this particular day that you're caddying for me, we hit it right in the middle half of this green, get our two putt. And now we're taking the walk to the 18th. And now the patrons are letting us hear it as we walk to that tee box. And let me ask you, what is that feeling like when you know you're going to win, be a part of a winning team, winning the Masters for you, walking to that 18th tee?
You feel like you're walking on air. When Phil won, I think all three of his Masters, we had similar weather every day. So you're out there, it's very late on the Sunday. The tee times are quite late in the afternoon, when you're in contention at the Masters. And so you're out there at, I don't know, it's 6:30 and it's the evening time and it's 75 degrees and sunny, and you're hearing it from the patrons, and it's just the greatest feeling in the world. And makes you feel that much better that, you're still negotiating the tee shot on 18, and it's a much easier tee shot for a left-hander than it is a right-hander.
Gosh, it's not easy for anybody. It's such a difficult shoot that you're hitting through. I think many people, when they get there for the first time, they don't realize how narrow it actually is. But when you get your ball through it, you find the fairway. You were going to talk a little bit about just what that second shot's like and how it plays is relative to elevation.
Yes, sir. Well, I think, let's see if we focus in on that fairway there, and we get a number there just short of the first fairway bunker. What sprinkler that is, I can't quite see.
Yeah, it's like 163 front is what
there
it's
we go.
Here.
So if we've laid the ball up with a 3-wood off this tee, which a lot of guys, they used to do back in the day, maybe not so much more now with the drivers being so much easier to hit, but if you shoot that with your a laser to a front pin and to a back pin, it's something like 9 or 10 uphill to a front pin, and something like 12 or 13 to a back pin from and what's fascinating to me is, and I tend to agree with this, it doesn't make any sense, but for whatever reason it plays way shorter than that. So I know a number of caddies, guys that you and I respect a lot, Smylie, that will play it only like 5 or 7 yards uphill. I don't know if it's because it's, the adrenaline or what it is, but that number up the hill plays much shorter than it actually is.
That's so interesting, and it's fascinating, and that's where having a experienced caddy like yourself and players that you learn things over the years at different masters, different conditions, which is why you see so many players that are veterans continue to play well. I mean, Freddie plays well at this event. It seemed like for decades, right? And it's all because of all the information that you absorb along the way.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And I think, you look at Tiger and Phil, two guys in my experience that have something akin to a photographic memory on golf courses, and they remember putts and reads and from previous years, and of course with the Masters being the only major that's played the same course year in, year out, they have this wealth of information, they're in the back of their golf brains, and it's, as you say, along with Freddie, it's why they tend to play so well there on this golf course.
And we're on this 18th green, and you've obviously had the experience 3 times here getting the win. But the one that stands out is, when Phil jumps way up in the air, it looks like you might get a sheet of paper underneath his feet, probably the highest he's ever jumped. But what's going through your brain of finally get the monkey off his back and getting it done?
You're sitting there and you realize, okay, this guy's got 18 feet to win the Masters. And I just remember telling myself, don't do anything silly. I remember one year a caddy had thrown their hat on the last hole when their player made a putt to win the Masters, and the hat landed in the other player's line. The other player had like a 6-footer for $300,000 difference in what he, and the caddy threw his hat and it landed in the line. I remember thinking to myself, as excited as that caddy was that day, and you can't blame him. I'm going to be pretty excited here too if Phil knocks his putt in. So rein it in a little bit if you can. But
easier said than done.
Easier said than done. I mean, just the greatest feeling in the world in the age of Tiger, when it was so tough to win majors, and for a guy like Phil, who was I think 34 years old when he ultimately won there in 2004, to get the monkey off his back, it was you're so happy for him, and it was just an incredible experience.
Well, congrats to you, by the way, for winning your 4th Masters on the bag, because you and I just got it done. We just tapped into the 18th. You got your arm around me. I got my arm around you. We're walking off the green. The patrons are crying. We're kissing babies. We're high-fiving. And we walk into the clubhouse. And how are we celebrating? What's the plan tonight?
Oh, we're going to celebrate. Let me tell you. Well, you're going to have Smylie. You've got a lot of media obligations, and then you have to have dinner with the members. I'm gonna cruise back to the caddy house and find that adult beverage we talked about earlier that tends to hang out there, especially on a Sunday afternoon. But you rented a house this week and a big party back at your place. Once
Great.
You clean everything up there at the club, and I look forward to seeing you there.
Well, Bones, you did such a great job caddying for me that I'm going to let you pick the dinner for the following year. What's the menu that you're picking now?
Oh, wow. You talk about something I've never thought about. Holy smokes. I'm a steak and potatoes guy, so we're going to have to find the finest steak we can possibly get our hands on. I love what Rory did this year, and he went over and above with the wine. I mean, I think that's, you win the Masters. Obviously, there's the financial ramifications of what comes along with that. I think if you want to separate yourself from the crowd, that's how you're going to do it with the wine that's served that night, as Rory's going to do this coming April. So let's go that route. Let's get the really good stuff and really soak it in.
I love it, Bones. That was, I mean, if you love Augusta National, you love the Masters, there's no way that you didn't enjoy this walkthrough and caddy all the way through the 18th, to the locker room, to the dinner of the following year, man. This was just a fun conversation that I know so many people enjoyed.
Smylie, thank you so much for having me on. It's always a pleasure to talk with you and talk about the Masters, and I've had a wonderful time this morning.
All right, Bones. Thank you, buddy. Thanks for taking the time.
You bet. Thank you.
We'll see you next week on the Golf Channel. This has been The Smylie Show.
I listen to this podcast. It's really cool. And
all of our lovely fans and subscribers, but make sure you like and subscribe.
It's cool to see what you guys are doing. I know golf fans appreciate it, but we do too, so please keep it up.
For all the good people at YouTube, like and subscribe.
You guys have some good takes, so I'm happy to come on and shoot the